Okay.
Well, I don't have much this week, but Curtis, I think you have some taxonomy stuff to talk about.
Sure.
Cool.
And I would like to talk about the project website a little bit. Okay.
You want me to start or? Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. Looks like I can. All right, so we should be looking at Chrome. So the taxonomy stuff is here. So if you click on the taxonomy viewer, I guess the first thing to show is internationalization. So everything will switch over to Spanish. Let's go back to English. And so for the taxonomy viewer, we've added some stuff to what Symbiota does. And so in Symbiota, what happens is you use scientific names and sort of authors are automatically included in building a list, an auto-completion list for the taxa. So here we have the options to include authors or not. The other thing that Symbiota does is it defaults to a taxonomic authority, and you don't have an ability to choose the taxonomic authority. So the taxonomic authority, there's actually different taxonomies stored within some Symbiota instances. So in this particular case, there's the central taxonomic thesis, thesaurus. I guess that's the sort of the unifying one, and IDIS and Mycobank. We've also had the ability to use vernacular names. And with vernacular names, you can choose the language. Now, the language, this field depends upon the data. And so some of the records in there are marked with EN, meaning English. But of course, it's going to separate that in either sort of in a real data source, a real Symbiota instance, you'd clean that up. So let's try Spanish. I don't know, I haven't tried Spanish before. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it brings up the Spanish vernacular names. You can search for it. How about Sabino? There's a famous canyon in Tucson, Sabino. So I guess Sabino is a kind of juniper tree. Is that what it is, Mary? Is that a juniper Paris? Is that juniper tree?
Right.
Okay.
We have it here too.
Yeah, and then in Symbiota, you can also include the authors, and here we can include the authors as well in the display. And then if we click on one of these things, oh, go ahead.
What about the higher taxonomy? You've only got it for the lowest levels?
This is because the data, these are all the authors that are in the data. So there's no author for any of these other levels.
Then, okay, we're going to have to it's one of the things that, yeah, they are there in the current.
Yeah, so in other, I mean, if you had Open Herbarium or Scan Data, I'm sure that a lot of these, yeah, SciNet, a lot of these ranks would be filled in with author names.
Right.
Yeah. So I clicked on Junipero, and so it comes up, and again, the data here is a little bit corrupted, and so the image, so there's an image link here, and I can open up this image link in a new, what does it say? Open a new tab. Okay, let's look and see where it is. So it's supposed to be at this site, Hasbrook ASU, and it's not there. And again, this is the data is corrupted, so it doesn't point to a good image, but here's the description. And again, if we want to switch over to Spanish over here, in Spanish, just the fields that I control change. The description doesn't switch over to Spanish because there is no Spanish description in the data. So there's not an ability to store the description in different languages currently. And this is true of Symbiota as well. But all these other things are how Symbiota does it. The only additional thing that Symbiota does is it gives down here, I believe like species level, maybe subspecies level thumbnails. And I haven't added that yet just because none of the pictures are working. So I can't get the cool pictures working. But once we get some good data in there and the pictures work, then I'll go ahead and add that. So that's sort of all for, and over here we can browse around in this taxonomy as well, and do other things.
One comment on.
Go ahead.
In Symbiota, you can have multiple descriptions, so you wouldn't need to translate for instance, we have Somali descriptions and English descriptions. We have short descriptions and long descriptions, and many sign-up portals offer that. So that's more in the profile setup, I think, than it is in the nomenclature, the taxonomy stuff.
So how I built this description is I grabbed all of the potential descriptions from the data. And so I do agree with you that this is under user control. And if you enter more data in different languages, it'll store in the descriptions, and I'll be able to show it here.
Then it would be, okay, so you'd still have you could see these different descriptions. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no auto translation
No,
this by choosing a different language here to some other language. It won't translate this part.
no, and I'm not asking for translation,
Okay.
but just multiple descriptions can be added for a single taxon.
Yeah, Mary.
Yeah,
so things like the missing image and the single language description and stuff like that are all just a function of our test data, you know, sort of lacking. And to fix that, one of the things Darius and I have been working on is pulling actual real portal data from existing portals like Open Herbarium and Scan, and using that as our test data. But that's not very exciting to show, which is why I said I didn't have much to show this week. So yeah, eventually we'll have better data on the demos.
Right. No, I was just sort of looking at it in terms of what we can do now in Symbiota, et cetera, et cetera. As I said, I recognized it wasn't really part of taxonomy per se. Well, I guess it links in there. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, just asking.
Yeah, so this will be exactly the same as Symbiota, because what happens in Symbiota and here as well is, see, each of these things right here. Sorry, my cell phone's going off. Just a second. Sorry about that. Let me call you back in just a minute, okay? Okay, let me call you back in just a minute. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm on vacation in the UK. That's my mother-in-law calling. But anyway, so each of these lines right here that start with a boldface thing is a new statement, a description statement. And so those inner description statement, and so those would be displayed just as they are in Symbiota. So it's exactly, the construction of this thing is exactly how Symbiota does it. And you can have different description statements. So I'll go ahead and stop the share, and I guess I'll turn it, if there's any questions.
I think I've been doing all my interjections.
All right.
It definitely looks great, and it means we can get started on images, which is pretty awesome. Because
I have part of the image plugin done, and I don't think the rest of it is going to be terrible to do.
Yeah, and that also means for anybody interested in data manipulation that our API has routes for fetching all of this taxonomic and image data. So that's pretty great too.
Well, so Evan, can you just briefly go over where you and Darius are at?
Yeah, so we're working on a couple of different things. The first one is the one that I mentioned, is the data migration. And this is good not only to make our demo site look better, you know, like fix those missing images and stuff. It's also good for, you know, practical application of migrating from Symbiota 1 to 2. And so we've been doing a lot of sort of back-end testing on that type of stuff. And yeah, like I said, it's not very exciting to show, but it's super important, and we're making good progress on doing that, sort of simplifying the actual internal database schema so it's easier to read and more compliant with sort of modern development practices and more readable by the user. Like if you were to go into the database directly and look at the list of table names, they're a little bit more human readable with these changes that we're making, and more intuitive. But yeah, not very exciting. So we've also been working on creating collections. So in the next couple of days, I'll probably send an email to the whole group saying, hey, if you log on to the demo site, you can create your collections and start doing Darwin Core uploads and cool stuff like that. Yeah, those are the things we've been working on.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we're a lot of traveling, trying to get stuff done. But so then you will have more exciting stuff. Well, it's not that you haven't made progress in the last couple of weeks, it's just that what you've done isn't really that visible, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that means that when we meet in a couple of weeks, it's going to be a powerhouse show.
That's right.
I just have a sense that that's going to happen.
Yep, big things.
Okay, sounds good. And then,
Can I?
Yep, go ahead, Mary.
I've been working with Alirize for on the Symbiota 2 site. This is the project site, not Symbiota 2, so it's sort of about the project. And so if you go into symbiota2.org now, you'll see a new version of what was up there. It includes basically the same material, but it's where we will be putting up all the recordings from these open sites, from these open webinars, and from presentations and links to different things like that. But importantly, one of the things it will have, I hate to say it, we're getting rid of the green lizard, because much as I love it, we're not using lizards much. But we're going to have how-to pages. And initially these will draw on some that I've done elsewhere, but I confess that I listened to one video I had prepared for this and cringed. So that will have to be redone. And I have found one useful tool. For those of you who do not know it, if you have Word 365 and you use it online, you can actually get it to generate transcripts. You can upload a recording and then it will transcribe it into Word, which is useful for me because I find it easier to talk forever. And then I can go through and cut in Word and use that for the next time around. But that's where the how-to will be. And then the interactions is got websites like the demonstration website for the front end and the back end, where you can see, the GitLab site and things like that, that kind of information. And then progress will be reporting up there too. We'll probably try to find some more informative way of providing the progress. Right now, it is more the talks we've given and things like that. And it's very much in development, and what is needed is me to create more content on some of this.
No, looks good. A lot better than the crappy website we had before.
You put it together fast. It was good.
Yeah, yeah.
This has taken us longer.
So are there any questions about what was presented today or timeline? So we're still shooting for the end of August to have minimally a bare bones version to run. And just keep plugging away.
Yeah, and I will mention for that sort of what that bare bones site means, we developed like a core requirements document of a description of what that site will look like in August. And that's probably something we should add to the symbiota2.org pages, Mary. So
I was going to ask you whether that could be added there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so if you're wondering what Neil's talking about with like a bare bones version of the site being ready by August, that'll be up on symbiota2.org soon. So,
Okay.
And it's basically, if I were to summarize, it's just it's taxa, occurrences, images, collections, log in, log out. So,
and the ability to do what Symbiota does, basically?
For all of those topics, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Got it. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, then we'll end a little bit early today and keep moving forward.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.